The story of power at the top really matters, especially when ordinary people were left without food or pay. Democracy isn't only about services working, it's about systems being fair and leaders being accountable. When hunger becomes a political tool, we've stopped protecting citizens and we've started sacrificing them. If the government can feed its people but doesn't, and its leaders can behave above scrutiny but aren't held accountable, what kind of country are we building? Good morning, and welcome back to the Informed American Podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Meyer. Today, I'm covering a story with two intersecting threads. The federal government is back open after a 43-day shutdown, which is the longest in U.S. history. At the same time, renewed scrutiny surrounds the relationship and the rivalry between Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. And I'm honestly surprised that this isn't about Obama. These two topics may appear unrelated at first, but together they form a larger narrative about power, governance, accountability, and democracy. And over the next several minutes, I'm going to explore what the government reopening means and what it doesn't fix, a primer on the Trump-Clinton headlines, what we know, what we don't know, and why this leadership matters, how these stories reflect deeper challenges facing Americans today, what citizens should pay attention to right now, and a final reflection on the intertwined nature of institution and influence. So let's begin. The government reopening and why it matters. Well, after weeks of stalemate, lawmakers reached a continuing resolution on Wednesday morning, November 12th, that restores funding to the federal government. National parks are reopening, agency staffers are returning to their desks, Veterans Affairs offices are resuming benefit processing. This is a good thing. And this reopening matters, and here's how. Services have resumed. So the social safety net programs, many programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and student loans, which were limited or ended completely during the shutdown, can now fully operate. This is a good thing. Federal employees. Now, an estimated 2.1 million federal civilian employees will receive back pay. Thank you. Contract workers and vendors, those who lost months of income while working for the federal government, will begin to get paid again. Economic ripples. Local economies that rely on federal payrolls, from grocery stores to near military bases to restaurants near government offices, will see activity improve. What the reopening doesn't fix. The surge in food insecurity caused by paused SNAP benefits remains a problem. And just because agencies opening doesn't guarantee benefits will catch up. Administrative backlog. Countless cases on immigration, tax filings, contract reviews, and energy permits were delayed. Those things don't clear overnight. The trust deficit, and it's a big one. When government stops, citizen confidence drops, and this one dropped a lot. A reopening restores functionality, yes, but not necessarily faith from the people. Why this shutdown was so different? Well, this wasn't just a funding gap. It became a policy weapon. Unlike past shutdowns, even in Trump's first term, those focused on smaller issues. This time, the lack of funding was tied to the refusal to release emergency funds for nutrition programs, and it turned into a budget dispute into a higher crisis. And now the reopening, while welcomed, comes after weeks of damage. The Trump-Clinton story. Context and facts. Now, let's turn to the second thread, the developments involving Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. I have been hearing stories and seeing memes all over social media over the past week or so, but I had no idea what was going on. So I dug deeper to see what is going on. And the overview, in recent days, the Trump administration asked the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate Bill Clinton's past association with Jeffrey Epstein and other high-profile figures. Simultaneously, Trump questioned how his own past associations are being used politically. They're not being used politically. They are being used judicially. So here are the facts that we know, the facts that I uncovered. Bill Clinton appears in Jeffrey Epstein's 2003 birthday book, which lists letters and visits from many influential people. The DOJ has launched or signaled an inquiry into Epstein's estate and his connections, which may include Clinton and others, obviously. Donald Trump publicly called for such an investigation while deflecting questions about his own relationship with Epstein. Now for the things we don't know about this, things that I couldn't find any information on. Whether Clinton was directly involved in any wrongdoing related to Epstein's crimes, whether Trump's request for an investigation is grounded only in politics or in new evidence, or whether the DOJ will treat all individuals the same or apply selective scrutiny. We'll see when the time comes. So why does this matter? Accountability of powerful figures. In a society where many citizens waited for benefits, the question of whether the elites are held to the same standards is fundamentally important, because most times they're not. Transparency is important. Citizens expect their institutions, courts, justice departments, investigative bodies to operate without favoritism, and they really have not done that in the past. And the distraction risk. When headlines focus on major power players, critical issues like benefit stoppage or infrastructure can be overshadowed. The intersection, power, governance, and hunger. Why I talk about reopening and Trump Clinton in the same episode? Because together they highlight a key truth. Functioning government and transparent leadership are inseparable. Governance in practice. When the government shut down, it wasn't just bureaucracy that paused, it was people's lives. Millions lost benefits, workers lost pay, and trust collapsed. Now the elite are in the media spotlight again, and it raises this question. Are leaders focused on the bread of the people or the spectacle of power and leadership behavior and public services? So consider this parallel. Trump refused to use contingency funds for hunger relief, even after a federal court ordered him to use it. Meanwhile, attention turned to rumors and scandals among top politicians. It's not just that services were disrupted, it's that priorities were revealed. For institutional transparency, the reopening of the government restores structure. That is very true. But the Trump-Clinton story reminds us that structure means little without accountability. Citizens get clarity not only when programs run, but when the powerful are held responsible equally as well. So what you should watch now, as you listen, here are 5 things to pay attention to. Did SNAP benefits fully resume? Check with your local state agency updates and watch for back pay promises and actual payments. Is the DOJ inquiry transparent? How quick is the turnaround? Are other figures also being investigated or only a select few? Are major issues being overshadowed? Infrastructure, health, housing, are they getting coverage? Or is the story staying focused on power players? Is government backlog shrinking? Delays in immigration, tax cases, and veterans benefits are key metrics. The reopening doesn't erase these months of delay. Are we seeing systemic change? Are laws or policies being updated to prevent future shutdowns? Is there discussion about making safety net programs mandatory rather than discretionary? These are all things that we need to think about. Now for the key takeaways and reflection. Here is what I hope you remember. A reopened government is good. Absolutely. But it's only the start. The story of power at the top really matters, especially when ordinary people were left without food or pay. Democracy isn't only about services working, it's about systems being fair and leaders being accountable. When hunger becomes a political tool, we've stopped protecting citizens and we've started sacrificing them. My final question to you: if the government can feed its people but doesn't, and its leaders can behave above scrutiny but aren't held accountable, what kind of country are we building? Thank you for joining me on the Informed American podcast this morning. I'm Shelley Meyer. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, democracy only works if you remain the priority. And release the Epstein files. Please remember to like and subscribe and share this with anyone else you think may enjoy this. Have a great Sunday.